The day after I was officially welcomed back by the wealthy Preston family, my adoptive brother, Mark, cornered me with a strange proposition. It was a bet, a cruel game of his own invention. The terms were simple and devastating. If he could successfully take away 9 things that mattered most to me, I would have to walk away from the family and my newfound life on my own. On his 9th attempt, Mark set his sights on my girlfriend, Clara, knowing full well she was struggling financially. He threw a check for $2 million on the table between them, asking her to marry him. "Marry you? Of course," Clara said, and I looked up in utter disbelief. My heart hammered against my ribs, but then Clara, touching the check with her long, elegant fingers, met my gaze and gave me a reassuring smile. "But the person I'm marrying is Leo," she declared, her voice firm. "I might be broke, but I have my pride. I'll only bow to the man I love most." That day, my adoptive brother ran out of the room in tears, and in a fit of rage, he agreed to a proxy marriage with a girl from the Vance family named Sophie, just for some good luck. Clara wasn't fazed in the slightest. She just watched him go with a cold, detached stare. Later that night, as I was holding a ring I had just bought for her, I overheard the household staff referring to my supposedly poor girlfriend as a young lady. Then I heard her voice, speaking to someone on the phone. "Are you really going to watch Mark marry someone else? The Vances are no joke. Once the wedding's over, it's too late." The usual softness in Clara's face was replaced by a chilling coldness I had never seen before. "I underestimated him," she said to her subordinate. "I thought marrying his brother would pressure him to comply, but I didn't expect him to be so stubborn. Fine, the wedding will go on. But before that, tie Leo up and deliver him to the Vances as well. This matter, including my identity, must remain a secret. I need to use this opportunity to teach Mark a lesson." At that moment, I felt as if I had been plunged into a pit of ice. The ring slipped from my fingers and fell to the floor with a sharp, crisp sound. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to my sister. "I've agreed to stand in for Mark in the marriage for good luck. I've thought it over, and I won't change my mind." "I'll do it." I opened the door to my sister Chloe's office. My face was lost in the shadows, making it difficult for her to read the mocking expression in my eyes. Chloe was in the middle of a game on her phone, but she quickly dropped it when she heard my voice. "You agreed? That's awesome. The Vances were just urging us. The young lady's condition is getting worse. She might only have 2 weeks left. They want the marriage to happen before then. I'll get the bridal price ready for you right now. Pick out any car you like from the garage. It's all yours." "Whatever," I cut her off. "I don't really care about any of that. But if you remember that I'm your real brother, then you'll agree to 2 conditions." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Chloe turned away, avoiding my gaze. "What conditions?" she asked. "First, give me the 2 villas. Second, keep my proxy marriage a secret from everyone, especially from Mark and Clara." Chloe's face froze, and she looked at me as if I were insane. "You're asking for the moon. You're the one who insisted on pursuing Clara, which ticked off Mark enough to volunteer for the marriage into the Vance family in the first place. You scared him half to death. This is all your fault. I thought you were finally stepping up by offering to go, but you're still being nasty." "That's on him!" I shouted, more animated than I had ever been since joining the Preston family. "Was I the one who forced him into that deal with me? You feel sorry for him after he's been scared for a few days, but you don't care that I'm marrying someone who's on the verge of death? If Mark is the only brother you care about, why did you bring me back from the orphanage? Why not just send me back where I came from?" I took a deep breath, finishing in a rush. "Besides, those 2 houses are assets Mom and Dad left for me when I was born. I'm just taking back what's mine. So who are you to call me greedy?" The barrage of questions left Chloe speechless, a vein throbbing on her forehead. After staring at me for a long while and seeing I wouldn't budge an inch, she gritted her teeth. "Fine. I won't argue with you. The marriage is set in stone. I had already transferred the houses to Mark's name, but I'll make the change for you." I offered a cold laugh and turned to leave. Just as the door was closing, Chloe asked one last question. Let's say the villas are yours, fair play. But why keep it from Clara? Isn't she completely devoted to you, willing to do anything for you? With your wedding just around the corner, how am I supposed to explain this to her? No need to explain, I stated, my voice colder than ever. It was only then that Chloe finally seemed to realize that the boy raised in an orphanage wasn't as easygoing as he appeared on the outside. My eyes welled with tears as I looked at the newly hung wallpaper and the wedding photos we had taken together. My heart felt like it was being ripped to shreds. My phone rang. It was Clara, checking in as she always did. I was about to respond when I heard a breathy sound from her end of the line. I paused, steadying myself to keep my voice from shaking. "What are you up to?" I asked. "Thinking about you," she teased. "Since you're not around, I had to find some fun on my own." I pulled up the system interface to see the surveillance footage on Clara. She was flirting with me on the phone while simultaneously giving Mark a wicked smile in person. Every sweet word she whispered to me made Mark's face twist in fury. When he finally couldn't resist reaching out to kiss her, Clara dodged, knocking over a vase. Its shattering sound echoed through my phone. Satisfied, Clara tossed her phone aside, completely unaware that I could see everything. She teased Mark. "Mad already? Tell me you love me, and I won't marry your brother." I didn't bother watching the rest. I cut the connection, tears slipping down my cheeks. Why hide my proxy marriage from Clara? To the rest of the world, we seemed to be madly in love. But only I knew that every ounce of Clara's affection was a calculated move to corner the Preston family's young master, Mark. She had lied to me, and now I would deceive her in return. "System, I'm done trying with Clara," I said, drying my tears and calling upon the interface in my mind. This time, the usual mechanical response seemed to hesitate. "Host, if you end the bond, not only will she revert to her old self, but you will also take a significant hit." "It doesn't matter." My tone was flat. "As long as I survive, they'll pay any price for me to leave Clara." "Hold on, host. Let me think of something. I first met Clara when we were both at our lowest points. When I initially joined the Prestons, life was easy for a short while. My parents felt guilty that I had been kidnapped by a maid as a baby and ended up in an orphanage, so they tried their best to make it up to me. Even if we weren't close, I could feel their attempts. But I could also feel that my family preferred Mark, the boy they had raised in my absence. Mark had the biggest, brightest room. Mark had mild OCD, so I wasn't allowed to bunk on his floor. Mark claimed I had a strange smell that made him uncomfortable. I never thought about competing with him, not until he proposed that bet. He said he could take away the most important things from me 9 times. If he succeeded, I had to leave the Prestons on my own. If he failed, he would lose face. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to see if my blood family truly cared about me at all. The first time, Mark took away my admission to an international high school, even though I had worked tirelessly for it. The second time, he took the dog I'd had for 3 years. Within 3 months, he returned its lifeless body to me. The third time, he snatched away the first girl I ever had a crush on. She publicly humiliated me, calling me a country bumpkin compared to Mark, but within a week, he had dumped her. Time and time again, whatever I cared about, Mark easily took away. Even scarier, I realized that my family's attitude toward me was growing colder. My dad lectured me, "You're the older brother, you should give in to your little brother." My mom pulled me aside into the study. "Mark isn't our biological child. He's very insecure, don't keep confronting him." My sister was more blunt, locking me in the school warehouse overnight. "Just because you're my biological brother doesn't mean you can take away what belongs to Mark." I always wanted to defend myself, but Mark's tears could easily capture the family's full attention. By the 9th time, when Mark announced he would take away my marriage partner, I had already given up. I had my bags packed, just waiting for the bet to end so I could leave the Prestons for good. Then, I found Clara in an alley. She was lying in the rain, her abdomen riddled with wounds, her blood almost staining my shoes. My first instinct was to run, but she reached out and grabbed my ankle. I couldn't risk taking someone in her condition to a real hospital. That's when I heard the system's voice for the first time. It said that if I could win over Clara, not only would her wounds be healed, but I would also have 3 wishes granted. With that power, Clara survived. Her severely injured legs showed no signs of damage. She became someone I couldn't let go of. So Clara replaced the fiancé I was supposed to have and became Mark's new target, the 9th and final part of our bet. When I confronted Mark about it, my sister stood behind him, silently threatening me to give up. But in that tense silence, Clara took my hand. The person I love is only Leo. The one worth marrying is only Leo. At that moment, tears streamed down my face. I had finally won just once. However, after Mark agreed to the proxy marriage with the Vance family, the last of my dreams was shattered. I overheard Clara casually instructing her subordinates. When the Vances come to pick me up, tie Leo up and send him along too. But keep my identity a secret. When Mark and I are united, I'll reveal it myself. A subordinate asked, "What about Leo? You agreed to marry him for his sake. Won't you leave him to fend for himself with the Vances?" She paused. "He is obedient and understanding. I promise to treat him better. Once the Vances aren't watching him, get him out and lock him in my villa on the north side. If he escapes, I'll break your legs." It turned out the person I saved was the mysterious Miss Monroe from the underworld. An influential figure the Prestons couldn't dare to offend. I realized that even at the Vances' home, I couldn't escape this nightmare. I couldn't stand being tied to someone like that through the system any longer. As my heart turned to ice, the system's voice surprisingly held a hint of excitement. "Host, I've detected a better target." Sophie, the daughter of the Vances, was nearly killed during a mission. She's currently brain dead. I can heal her, and if you win her over, you can also have 3 wishes granted. What do you say? Want to take a chance? My heart skipped a beat. In the system's long speech, one word stood out: sacrifice. I didn't hesitate for long. Switch targets. Reviving her might be more worthwhile than saving Clara. The system went to report to its superiors and switched the target. The weight on my mind eased slightly. When I got home, I ran into Mark, storming out, his eyes red. "Move!" He shoved me hard. My back hit the corner of a table, and Clara caught me. Her face turned dark as she stopped Mark. "Apologize." Mark stared in disbelief. "Who does he think he is? Why should I apologize to him?" Clara lifted my shirt, revealing a nasty bruise forming on my lower back. Her expression grew even darker. She warned, "Don't make me do something worse." The boy shivered, tears silently falling like a frightened rabbit. I once hoped someone in this house would stand up for me. But now that it was happening, it felt so ridiculous. How should he be punished? Clara's scent was the same as Mark's body wash. I was really tired. People who didn't sincerely care for me were worthless to keep around. I stepped away from Clara's support. "I'm fine. We have a family dinner tonight. I'll go change." Clara couldn't hide her surprise. "You don't want him to apologize?" Before, she could see it clearly. In front of Mark, when she defended me, there was a sparkle in my eyes, but this time it was like looking into an old, stagnant well, with no ripple at all. Clara felt a bit uneasy, so she quickly spoke up. "Can I go with you tonight?" I gave her a surprised glance, but seeing the hope in her eyes, I quickly understood. "If you want to come, then come." Clara didn't like crowded places, but if she didn't go to the family dinner, she would be separated from Mark, which was probably a kind of torment for her. Luckily, in half a month, I would be marrying Sophie, the comatose girl. By then, without me being a hindrance, Clara could stick to Mark as long as she wanted. That evening, the car drove into the Prestons' ancestral home. This was the first time Clara, a supposedly poor woman, had attended such a formal banquet. I didn't wait for her. A trace of dissatisfaction flashed across her face, but she quickly put on an appropriate smile and followed behind me, attracting envious glances. Despite me not being particularly capable, the girlfriend I found was top-notch in looks and figure. With such a strong wife, people whispered, I wouldn't be looked down upon after marriage. I showed no reaction, but Mark was quite upset, throwing himself into his grandma's arms and acting spoiled. The old lady comforted him. Poor Mark, having to suffer at the Vances, blaming someone for being ungrateful, insisting on competing with our Precious for a woman. If you had gotten engaged earlier, it wouldn't have come to this. A cold smile played on my lips. It seemed like all the Prestons thought it didn't matter if I went to the Vances. For Mark, the Vances might be a den of suffering, but for me, was it supposed to be heaven? That night, in front of everyone, the old lady handed the jade bracelet from her left wrist to Mark. This is our Preston family heirloom. We only pass it down to one person each generation. Mark, it's yours now. No? In the silence, a woman's calm voice rang out. I was startled and looked at the speaker. Clara leaned against the back of her chair, projecting a nobility that didn't match her identity. Smiling slightly, her eyes were sharply fixed on Mark. Isn't Leo the real son of the Prestons? Mark is just adopted. How can he get that bracelet? The atmosphere around the dinner table paused. Various looks turned to me, making me uncomfortable. I quickly tugged on Clara's clothes, whispering, I don't care. You don't have to do this. The woman flashed me a smile and continued to give Mark a pointed look, clearly intended to put pressure on him. If you beg me, I'll make sure your brother doesn't hold it against you. I felt a chill in my heart. Clara wasn't trying to stand up for me. She was clearly using my name to force Mark to yield to her, not caring about my well-being. The old lady banged her cane on the ground several times in anger. Well, Leo, you have some nerve. Having a girlfriend means you let your woman insult your own brother? Have you been hiding these thoughts for a long time? I'm telling you, if you keep making things difficult for Mark, I'll kick you out of the family. I lowered my eyes. Then, the system's voice chimed in. Host, the target has been changed. The new target will take effect in 2 weeks. In other words, from that moment on, the Prestons and Clara wouldn't be able to bind me anymore. Years of grievance surged through me. I suddenly raised my head. Mark, want to bet with me again? Mark heard the word, bet, and for a moment his expression was unnatural. Bet what? Bet on this bracelet. We'll bid turn by turn, only using our own things as stakes. Whoever bids higher takes the bracelet, and the other side stakes. Unexpected surprise flashed across everyone's faces. They all knew I grew up in an orphanage, and since being found, was not favored. What could I possibly have to wager against Mark? Obviously, Mark thought so too. He was the first to pull out a black card. Don't chicken out, this is my entire savings. I chuckled, pulling out a similar card. The butler checked the balance, looking perplexed. Master Leo wins. Impossible, Mark muttered in disbelief. He took out a string of keys. A private island from Dad, a villa from Mom, and a yacht from my sister. These should be enough. They were his birthday presents from past years. I produced some documents. The butler's attitude turned serious. Master Leo wins. At this point, people around us were getting curious, wanting to see what the documents contained. I remained unfazed. Continue. Everything you have is actually gifted by Mom and Dad, Mark seethed. I refuse to believe you have anything else. I can tell you what I have are my scholarships and patent papers, all earned on my own, and I can provide even more if needed. Mark's face flushed with disbelief, his chest rising and falling sharply before he declared, "Continue, a 16 million villa. I don't believe you can scrape that amount together." Quickly, Chloe's face blanched, and she immediately tried to stop him. "Mark, don't." "Why not? This is all I have left, sister. Do you want to see me lose?" "No, it's just—" Before she could finish, the butler interjected. "Sorry, Master Mark. These two properties now belong to Master Leo." "What?" Mark's expression turned to one of shock, as if someone had gripped his throat. 16 billion had suddenly become my chips. If Mark couldn't put up something more valuable, everything he had would become mine. Mark, anxious, twisted his sleeves, with his grandma and sister watching worriedly, but helplessly. They couldn't bring themselves to help Mark cheat openly. As he bit his lower lip on the verge of tears, I stayed calm, staring at him. In the past, I wouldn't have been so aggressive. I always wanted to fit in with the Prestons and wouldn't have wanted to embarrass their young master. But today, no matter who tried to reason with me, I wouldn't change my mind. Someone was already preparing to take the bracelet that was up as a bet. Mark started crying loudly. Just then, the butler looked in disbelief at his computer. 1.5 billion? Someone has just transferred 1.5 billion to Master Mark's account. Oh my God, 1.5 billion. Who could instantly transfer that much cash? The guests at the family gathering gasped in surprise. The butler wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, answered a call, and put it on speaker. A voice I recognized came through the phone. "Miss Monroe says Mark can't lose. The Monroes will cover all of Mark's bets today." Every word was clear, hitting the hearts of everyone present. The Monroes? Is it the Monroes I'm thinking of? Who else has that kind of money? This is no comparison to Leo's girlfriend. These are the real big shots. Leo, you might as well give it up. The Monroes have tons of money and hold grudges. If you piss them off, life won't be easy. My ears buzzed, and I stared intently at Clara. The woman was still smiling, as if none of this concerned her, watching Mark laugh through his tears like she was watching her prey. I just felt it was all absurd. I put up the two houses, 1.6 billion. I'm following. Less than 5 minutes later, another 200 million came through. The Monroes had the capability to shut me down instantly, but they chose to torment me with just a slight edge. I finally broke down. With a hoarse voice, I confronted Clara. "So you're not leaving me any way out today?" The woman seemed to snap back to reality, realizing she was my fiancé. She apologetically hugged my shoulder. "Sorry, Leo. I'm just an ordinary person. I can't help you out here. But since this situation started because of me, I'll talk to Mark and cancel the bet." I was shaking with emotion. No ability? The person who caused this mess was the woman right in front of me. Whether as my fiancé or as the mysterious Miss Monroe, she intended to crush my dignity. I struggled to stand my ground. "I won't admit defeat. It's just a bet. I'll keep going." Clara frowned and held my arm. "Leo, don't do anything rash. There's no point losing everything over this, right?" I squeezed my eyes shut. The Vance's dowry was already in my hands. If I risked it all, even Clara couldn't fight me. But doing so would expose the arranged marriage. Under no circumstances could I lose this bet. Before I could speak, my grandma intervened. She looked at me with a complex expression and scolded Mark. "All right, Mark, stop fooling around. Clara has a point. Giving you the bracelet unilaterally isn't fair to Leo. I'll hold on to the bracelet. Since the bet is off, the deal is void. It was just a joke between brothers. Everyone takes their stuff back." Clara raised an eyebrow. I saw a hint of disappointment in her eyes. I broke free from the woman's grip, my nails digging into my palms. Beyond the shame, I was full of regret. I should have never agreed to bind to any system. Letting Clara die in that alley would have been better for everyone. After the gathering, I refused Clara's company and walked back alone. I didn't want to see anyone's sympathetic or mocking looks. When I reached the riverside, the system spoke up. Host, Clara, and Mark are across the river. Is that so? What are they talking about? The system helpfully eavesdropped. Any regrets about breaking up with me, Clara softly asked Mark. Doesn't matter if I do or don't. Mark's voice was cold. You're about to marry Leo, and I have to marry the Vance's deceased daughter. We have no future. Clara's voice turned a bit coaxing. Just say you were wrong. I can sort these things out. Mark sneered. You're just an ordinary person. As if your word means anything. You're not actually pretending to be Miss Monroe, are you? If it weren't for her tonight, I'd have been extremely embarrassed. You know, Clara, this was all your doing. And I despise you. I stayed silent. Clara had solved the issue, yet she wouldn't tell Mark. She still pretended to be sincerely in love, favoring my despised brother in front of me. All of it was just to make Mark apologize, to humble himself. And I deserved to become Clara and Mark's pawn. Suddenly, I didn't want Clara to reveal herself. I took out my phone and dialed her number. I want to taste the porridge you cooked yourself. Where are you? Clara sounded a bit resigned. I'm almost home. I'll go buy the ingredients now. Do you want chicken porridge or seafood porridge? Mark was a bit irritated by her sweetness. His little face flushed. I had good eyesight and clearly saw a figure turn and run away. I casually replied to achieve my purpose, You decide. A woman's doting voice came through. All right, you just wait to eat. I went in first. After just a few sips of porridge, Clara called out, Mark, your brother has no appetite tonight. I made porridge for him. Do you want some? Mark got closer and suddenly knocked over the bowl. Scalding porridge splashed on my wrist, leaving a red burn. I'm allergic to seafood. What's the deal? Clara's lips were smiling, but her eyes were full of malicious provocation. My husband loves seafood porridge, so I make seafood porridge. Why should I consider you? Who are you to me? I tossed the spoon onto the table, making a crisp noise. In a cold voice, I said, I don't have time to deal with your issues. But the porridge on me, you can either wipe it clean or lick it clean. Clara, I found you. Remember who you are. Clara's pupils shrank. Mark looked disdainful. Big attitude talking to me like that. Be careful, I'll tell my sister and get you kicked out. I raised an eyebrow, a chill in my eyes. Go ahead. Let's see if she'll speak a word. Now, the Prestons are the ones who can't be without me. If I leave, where will the Prestons find another son to bring Mark luck? Having shut Mark up, I turned to Clara. You seem to enjoy bickering with Mark. How about this? I'll decide and let you marry Mark as a concubine. Follow him to the Vances. Are you okay with that? Clara forced a laugh. Stop joking. Why say it like that? That's because I'm being kind, I coldly interrupted. You eat, live, and your very life is because of me. How can you say no? I stood up to leave. Suddenly, a system warning sounded. Host, be careful. The large crystal chandelier above crashed down fast. Everything happened so quickly. Having been used to hardships from a young age, I reacted by covering my head with both arms and ran outside at the system's warning. But I never expected that Clara would push me, slightly pulling Mark from the danger zone. The chandelier crashed heavily to the ground, shards cutting many wounds into me. I was in such pain I almost fainted, staring stubbornly at my fiancé and brother. Before losing consciousness, I saw Clara rushing to me, her ice-cold hands pressing on my arm wound. It was the last straw. When I regained consciousness, I smelled antiseptic. I gritted my teeth hard, anger bubbling inside with no outlet. Before I opened my eyes, I heard Mark crying at the bedside. Clara, you still love me, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have saved me. If it's true, take me away. Let's run away from the marriage. Mom, Dad, and Chloe would have Leo go over to satisfy the Vances. and then we can come back after it's all settled." Even without looking, I could guess that beneath the woman's gentle gaze was satisfaction. She was finally succeeding. She had captured Mark's heart. Before she could keep talking, I struggled to wake up, yanking the IV drip off my right arm. Hearing the noise, Clara turned around quickly, looking anxious. "Leo, are you awake? How are you feeling?" I slapped her across the face. The blow turned Clara's head to the side, her pupils trembling uncontrollably. "Are you insane?" Since officially becoming Miss Monroe, nobody had dared to treat her this way. Slapping someone was worse than stabbing them. I didn't hesitate. Another slap landed. "Clara, whose fiancée are you? Doesn't your conscience tell you that shoving aside your lover to protect another man is wrong?" "Leo, let me explain." My hand shook from the force, droplets of blood splattering from the back of my hand. I ignored it, reaching for the nurse call button. "We're done." Mark rushed forward, grabbing my hand. "Don't do it. I know you're jealous. You can't stand anyone being nice to me. You can't treat Clara like that. Even if she's going to marry you, she's still your wife. How can you not give her any respect?" A spark of excitement flashed in Mark's eyes as he grabbed my hand and slapped it against his own face. "Hit me! Take it out on me! Just don't take it out on Clara after you hit me!" I could have easily pulled away, but seeing Clara reach out to help Mark up made me bite my lip and go along with it. I slapped Mark, following his lead. The man let out a scream, and his cheek immediately swelled up. Clara kept a tense face, but surprisingly, she smiled instead of getting angry. "Leo, it's my fault. In the heat of the moment, you and Mark looked so alike. I mistook you for him. I swear it won't happen again." But that day, when the three of us left the hospital in a car, it suddenly turned into a small alley. A dozen motorcycles surrounded the car. A guy in a black suit holding an iron rod yanked the car door open. They didn't even look at me. They just dragged me out of the car. "Miss Monroe wants me to teach you a lesson. Either let us slap you 100 times or I'll break your wife's leg." Some women pretended to hold Clara down. She yelled angrily, "Come at me, don't hurt him." I felt desolate inside, like a barren land hiding erupting lava beneath. I almost laughed out loud. "Go ahead, break her leg then." Everyone froze. Mark was the first to scream. "How could you be so cruel? It's only 100 slaps. You won't die from that. If Clara's leg breaks, who's gonna fix it? Right. What would someone do without a leg?" My gaze landed on Clara's leg. I wonder if Miss Monroe's leg has ever been broken. Does she know what it's like to not have one? Clara's struggling stopped. Silence filled the alley. Not even the sound of insects, just the sharp sound of slaps. Clara never stopped it. The system in my mind urged me, "Host, don't panic. The police have been called and will be here in 5 minutes." I had never hated anyone so much. I was biting the skin off my lip, leaving it a bloody mess. All I did was slap Mark once, and that was only because he asked for it. And Clara wanted 100 slaps in return, putting on an act for me, pretending she'd do anything for me. I swore I'd pay back this pain eventually. After 50 slaps, my face was swollen and raw. My skin was so fragile it bled easily, making it hard to continue hitting. I heard those people asking for permission. "Miss Monroe, should we keep going?" But the woman just looked at me for a moment and made a discreet hand gesture that meant to continue. I shut my eyes tight. The slap was poised to come down, but paused indefinitely. Then I heard a loud shout. "What are you doing? Is there any law and order left?" I looked up to see a car blocking the alley's entrance. It wasn't the police. After being taken to the hospital, Clara was not allowed to visit me. A dignified man sat by my bed. "You're Leo, right? Don't be afraid. I'm Sophie's father." I was a bit surprised. Mr. Vance's face was calm, but worry lingered in his eyes, showing how much he cared for his daughter's situation. He held my hand. "The wedding to drive away bad luck is just a show for Sophie's grandmother. The old lady is getting senile and couldn't handle her granddaughter's sacrifice. She started praying everywhere. and eventually someone convinced her that finding a man to marry Sophie would bring good luck. Once the wedding ceremony is done, I can send you abroad. You're young. Do you want to keep studying?" I softly shook my head and gripped the man's hand in return. "Don't give up too soon. There might be a way to heal Sophie's injury." When I got home from the hospital, boxes of gifts filled the Prestons' old house living room. Mark grinned brightly. "These are all from Miss Monroe. She proposed to me already. Once the Vance's useless one kicks the bucket, I'll marry Miss Monroe. You're invited to my wedding." He sighed. "It's crazy how people can be so different. You've just got one girlfriend, and your family has to pitch in to help. You guys are so pitiful." I was curious. "Weren't you just calling her Clara and hanging on to her at every chance? You guys seemed pretty close. You're not mad she wants to marry me?" Mark shrugged it off. "Just another scholarship kid. I can find plenty in college, none compared to Miss Monroe. It's not just money that reaches the Monroe's level." I almost laughed, wondering what Clara would think hearing this. I asked in my mind, "Did you get that recorded?" The words played back in my mind. "Don't worry, host. I visited the director who took care of me at the orphanage." The kind old man had a big smile on his face. "Leo, I heard you're getting married. I don't have much to give you, but take this amulet. I hope you'll always be safe and happy. By the way, how's your fiancée? Is she good to you?" I felt a lump in my throat and managed a genuine smile. "I haven't met her, but she's a good person. She's a soldier willing to sacrifice for the country. Even if she doesn't love me, I trust she won't treat me badly." "What do you mean, doesn't love?" Clara's voice came from behind me. She studied my expression, then handed a fruit basket to the director. "Don't worry, I am Leo's fiancée. After we get married, I'll treat him well." The director looked a bit confused, but I said he glanced at my numbed expression and sighed, saying nothing more. Clara and I walked out of the orphanage side by side. She handed me a bottle of pills. "You've been saying your stomach has been bothering you. I got a friend to get you some medicine. Remember to take 2 pills before bed." I clutched the bottle. The label said it was regular stomach medicine, but my system warned me it contained sedatives. 30 minutes after taking 2 pills, you'll be out cold. Clara had prepared for both scenarios. If I took the sleeping pills, I'd unknowingly be sent to the Vances. If I didn't, Miss Monroe's people would bind me and send me forcefully. I wanted to laugh. She didn't know all her efforts were in vain. Back home, Chloe rushed over. "Bad news. Someone from the Vances said their eldest daughter went into the ICU last night. The doctors can only maintain her vitals. She could die at any time. They want us to send someone over tomorrow morning." Before I could speak, Clara exclaimed, "So soon?" She clutched my hand tightly, for once actually seeming reluctant. Mark turned pale, collapsed onto the couch, and grabbed onto Chloe's sleeve. "I'm scared. What if Sophie dies as soon as I get there? I'll have to spend the night with a dead person." Chloe hugged him tightly, comforting him. "No, don't worry. How could your sister let you go through that?" As she spoke, she looked at me but didn't see any fear, only mockery in my eyes. Her face suddenly felt hot, and she didn't dare meet my gaze any longer. I went upstairs. In the public living room on the 2nd floor, there was a custom tuxedo. Mark never tried it on. If he had, he'd realize it wasn't his size. Clara hugged me from behind. "Leo, go to bed early tonight. We have to get up early tomorrow to send Mark." She couldn't see my face, but when she hugged me today, she didn't feel like letting go. She quickly pushed that feeling aside. She had already arranged everything perfectly. She'd bring me out later, and then she'd be my savior. I would surely see her as my only support. Even if she and Mark got married and had a grand wedding, I wouldn't escape her grasp. That night, Clara didn't sleep well. She dreamt of that alley again, of escaping an enemy and a boy carrying her on his back. The warmth reverberated through her dream, pulling her awake. Sitting up in bed, the phone rang. Her subordinate's voice was urgent. Miss Monroe, we went to Leo's room and couldn't find him." "He ran? Damn it, who leaked the info?" No. We asked Chloe. She said young Master Leo has already left in the Vance's wedding car." Clara stood up abruptly, but before she could go downstairs, her legs were in sudden, excruciating pain. Though used to injuries, the agony brought her to her knees. When I got into the wedding car, the system notified me. My mission had shifted away from Clara, now focusing on Sophie. I felt an emptiness inside, as if something intangible was being pulled from my chest, forcing me to put a hand over my heart and take a deep breath to steady myself. "After unbinding, will Clara be affected a lot?" I asked the system curiously. "Absolutely," the system replied without hesitation. "While her body won't regress to a near-death state, thanks to your care, her legs were repaired by the system. Now that she's been booted out, the repairs will disappear." If Clara had truly loved me, if we had gotten married and had kids just like any regular couple, planning to spend the rest of our lives together, my first wish was for her legs to fully recover. I had been planning it for a while. From the moment the Prestons pushed me away, I decided to be someone who could truly love and hate. If I found someone I truly loved, I'd be willing to sacrifice anything for them. Who knew I almost took a huge hit because of Clara? "All right, host, we've got to look forward. If I hadn't found Sophie as a substitute, your situation might not be any better than Clara's right now." I curled my lips into a slight smile. "I know I won't dwell on the past. I'm just curious, with Clara becoming a cripple, can she still be Miss Monroe?" Meanwhile, Clara was on the floor, clutching her legs and rolling in pain. She didn't understand why her legs hurt so much. It felt like they were being forcibly broken, and the bone-chilling pain had her breaking out in a cold sweat. But Clara endured it without making a sound, slowly getting through the wave of pain. She hadn't reached her current status by reading and writing, or just sitting in an office looking at reports. It was through real fighting and scheming. On the day Mark dumped her because she was poor, she swore she'd make him regret it. This stubbornness had carried her through numerous life-or-death situations. Now, victory was in sight. Mark had given his heart to her, bowing down to her other identity's power. Why was something like this happening at such a critical moment? Leo. It had to be Leo messing with her. What exactly had happened? Wasn't I preparing for our wedding? Why did I end up in the Vance's wedding car? When did I plan all this? She stuck by me almost every day, and hadn't noticed anything was wrong. The driver Clara had planted in the Preston household rushed over to her. He helped the woman on the floor. "Miss Monroe, are you all right? Should I get a doctor for you?" "No, it's fine." Clara tried to stand with his help. "There's something more important you need to do. Right now, send people to the Vances and find out how far the wedding has gone. Oh, and get Chloe. I have some questions for her." But Clara never expected her legs not to listen to her at all. The driver noticed her expression was off and anxiously asked, "Miss Monroe, what's wrong? Are your legs numb? Let me help you slowly up." Clara pressed hard on her legs, her face changing dramatically. She couldn't feel anything. Everything happened so suddenly. She had a bad feeling about it. Despite the cold sweat dripping down her back, she grabbed the driver's arm. "Get me to the hospital right now." My wedding car pulled into the Vance's mansion. The huge villa was decorated entirely in white. It looked like a wedding setup, but also a bit like a memorial. When I got out, the whole Vance family was waiting at the door. No one was missing. An elderly lady stood at the front. When she saw me, she was about to bow deeply. "I'm sorry, child. It was my selfishness that got you into this. I know a joyous occasion might not save Sophie, but I couldn't let go of even a shred of hope. Don't worry. If Sophie can't make it, we won't let your efforts be in vain. We'll treat you like our own family, like my own grandson. Any request you have, I will fulfill." I was stunned and hurried to support the old lady. My eyes turned to Mr. Vance, who was looking at me with affection. the kind of warmth in his eyes that my real parents had never shown me. I felt a pang of bitterness. All these years, I had put the Prestons above everything else, fearing abandonment, fearing being cast out. I clung to the little hope the Prestons gave me. If Mark hadn't shattered my illusions time and again, I'd still be the Prestons' most loyal dog, willing to do anything for them. But leaving the Prestons, I walked into what people called a den of demons, yet here they were, telling me I'd have a family. How absurd everything was. I looked at the tears in their eyes, feeling unsettled. I turned to Mr. Vance, a bit surprised. "Mr. Vance, didn't you tell Grandma and Mrs. Vance what I told you before?" Mr. Vance took my hand and led me inside. "If Sophie really gets through this, and you guys develop feelings for real, there's no rush to change how you address us." He then quietly said to me, "Leo, I've kept what you said before in mind. I too hope Sophie can get better, but we've wished countless times and been disappointed just as many. Now nobody can handle another letdown, so I couldn't say it. Maybe you do have a way to save Sophie." I walked into the house. I passed through the garden to reach a secluded villa in the back. I saw a girl lying there, covered in tubes. She couldn't wear her wedding dress, which was set aside, pristine and white. They hadn't prepared any marriage certificate or agreement. They knew this wedding was just a last-ditch effort. When Sophie finally passed away, they didn't want me to become a widower. I looked closer. Sophie, although pale and frail, was immaculately groomed. I suddenly felt a bit envious. Sophie had a family bond and a meaningful life, things I desperately wanted but could never attain. They nodded with red eyes, and finally a trace of relief showed on their faces. Just as everyone relaxed, a sharp alarm from the machines pierced the air. Sophie's heart monitor flatlined. Even though they were prepared, Mr. Vance still took a deep breath and collapsed, caught by Mrs. Vance. The old lady's once unyielding posture now bent with grief. I was startled. I mentally urged the system, "Hurry! Sophie can't hold on." I had never found the flat, mechanical voice so comforting before. "Don't worry, host. Sophie's data has been loaded." The alarm ceased. The heart monitor showed its first blip, and Sophie, who had been unconscious for nearly 2 months, opened her eyes. The first person she saw was me. Her eyes focused, and I saw stars twinkle within them. After Sophie woke up, Clara, who had been sent to the hospital, also regained consciousness. The first person she saw was Mark. The handsome young man pouted, complaining, "What's up with you? Why did you suddenly pass out? Oh, I have good news. I'm not marrying that coma patient from the Vances." Clara was still groggy, remembering her intricate plan to have me marry in Mark's place. She couldn't imagine Mark ever leaving her side. But his next words jolted her awake. "I don't know what Leo's thinking, volunteering like that. Is he nuts marrying a dead person?" Clara's temples throbbed painfully. Before she fainted, she had heard her subordinates say that I wasn't taken to the Vances by them. How could this have happened? In the hospital room with Mark, Chloe snorted and tapped his head. "Do you really think he's that dumb? I had to transfer our 2 houses to him just to get him to agree to the marriage. What more could he want? Besides, becoming in-laws with the Vances, there's nothing bad about that, right? They're big, righteous, and the old lady is quite a figure. He lost his wife right away. Who knows how carefree he is now?" The more Chloe talked, the more reasonable it seemed, and the guilt she felt toward me diminished. Since I had talked to her in the office, she hadn't been eating or sleeping well. She kept seeing my stubborn gaze over and over, and it made her reflect, wondering if she'd been too harsh on me. It seemed like the little boy grabbing her clothes and calling her sister hadn't shown up in a long time. Chloe was lost in thought, but was pulled back to reality by Clara's voice. Clara, looking shocked, blurted out, "He's with the Vances. What about me?" Chloe felt awkward, scratching her head. "Don't blame me for hiding it. Leo threatened me to keep it secret, or else he wouldn't go. I didn't expect he'd be so heartless, not even telling you. Just pretend he never existed anyway. Didn't Mark like you? Marrying him still links you to the Prestons, right? Leo can't compare to Mark. Clara suppressed her irritation and smiled at the siblings. Deep down, she felt the Prestons should be begging her to marry them. She wasn't aiming too high yet. Before she could say anything, Mark interrupted, embarrassed. Why mention that? Remember Miss Monroe proposed to me? I can't exactly turn her down. Chloe's expression tightened. Right. Nearly forgot. We need to plan carefully. Clara's discomfort grew. Even though the Preston siblings didn't want to upset her, and the Miss Monroe they mentioned was her, something felt off. Clara, deep in thought, recalled meeting me for the first time. Just like now, she had awakened in a room. I didn't just ramble on. Instead, I dipped a cotton swab in water and touched it to her lips. Not like Mark, who wouldn't even bother to pour her a glass of water. And I found happiness in simple things. It seemed like I didn't care what her home was like. Clara had to lie, saying she came from a poor mountain village, had a tough time finding jobs after college, got mugged, and was stabbed several times, losing all her money. At that moment, my eyes were full of heartache. I believed every word of her far-fetched story. Later, she just needed to speak kindly to me when I was upset with Mark, and I'd be all about her again. Clara had met countless men, but even the naive Mark in front of her couldn't compare. I was the easiest to please. She decided to get me out of the Vances' home. They needed to have a proper talk. With her plan set, Clara sent the Preston siblings out of the room. She called in her aide. What's wrong with my leg? Why can't I feel anything yet? Is this hospital full of quacks? They can't even handle a simple injury. This, the aide stuttered, unable to make things clear. Clara sensed something was badly wrong, and was staring at him like she wanted to tear him apart. The aide was trembling in desperation. He finally blurted out the doctor's diagnosis. Miss Monroe, the doctor says your leg is already necrotic and can't be treated. Even if a miracle doctor comes down from the heavens. When Sophie woke up, Mr. Vance almost kneeled before me, wanting to adopt me on the spot. It was Mrs. Vance who calmed her excited husband. Leo just married Sophie. Wouldn't adopting him now be strange? You should see what the kids think. Right, I'm so muddled. Leo, you must be tired after today. Let me take you to your room to rest. I nodded with a smile. I thought Mr. Vance meant a guest room, but as we walked, I realized he was taking me to the nicest room in the house, even better than Sophie's room. It was cozier. Mr. Vance had me sit on the bed. Leo, I didn't know what you liked, so I had people find out. If there's anything you're not happy with, you need to tell me. I gazed around in disbelief. Even the bedside had my favorite gardenia flowers. The shelves were full of books from my field and the novels I enjoyed. Even the bed sheets were my favorite light gray. I thought it was all a coincidence. Not even Chloe, whom I'd known the longest, could say what color I liked or what fruit I loved. Are these for me? Of course, silly kid. Mr. Vance patted my shoulder. When the old lady said she thought of you as a grandson, she meant it. She never promises what she can't deliver. Honestly, I'm glad it's you who married Sophie and not Mark. I was surprised. Why? In my life, it was the first time someone had said I was better than Mark. Mentioning Mark, Mr. Vance's smile faded. Actually, I proposed a marriage to Mark before, when Sophie was unhurt. The Prestons came to us, hoping to set up their kids. I heard great things about their oldest son, but they introduced us to a good-for-nothing younger son instead. Mark likes clubbing and racing cars. We knew all that, so we declined straight away. But after Sophie was hurt, the Prestons acted completely different when I reached out again. I don't know how they agreed later on, but I ended up with a bad impression of Mark. I lowered my eyes. Mark had agreed just to spite Clara. Mr. Vance didn't know this, but I had lived through it. Mr. Vance gripped my hand. If Mark had come, I'd only give him money to send him away. I wouldn't have prepared these things. Even if you and Sophie don't end up in a romantic relationship, I hope you can still call me Dad and Sophie your sister. My eyes turned red. I tried to speak, but couldn't utter a word. The sound of Dad was too foreign to me. I wished I could call my real father that, enough for those lost years, but I never got that chance. No rush, Mr. Vance smiled, fine lines creasing at the corners of his eyes. I'll wait for you. I believe in our bond. After seeing Mr. Vance off, I lay on the bed. I asked the system, what really counts as a successful mission? I used to think it was about falling in love, like Clara and I were supposed to, never to part. But this time I wasn't sure I truly wanted Sophie to love me. Plus, I didn't want to tie my feelings to just one woman. Once bitten, twice shy. System. You need to check her affection level. If Sophie's affection for you reaches 100, then you've succeeded in winning her over. I can fulfill your wish then. Aren't you curious about Sophie's affection level now? I sighed. I don't even know Sophie, so how could there be any affection? No. The system's voice sounded like it was chuckling. Her affection for you is a solid 70, already way more than when you first met Clara. I was a bit surprised. Not just more, it way surpassed it. Even when Clara and I were discussing marriage, her affection level was just at 85. I always thought that was the normal level for a couple who wasn't married yet. The rest would build up over time. While I was lost in thought, the progress bar that belonged to Clara, which had turned gray, started growing slowly. It went up to 90. When Clara learned about her legs being in bad shape, she did have a moment of breakdown. But she was someone who had been through a lot and quickly regained her composure. She coldly asked her family doctor, "What's going on? Even if my legs were going to go bad, it should have happened a year ago. Now all my other injuries are healed. Why are my legs suddenly worse?" The doctor was puzzled, too. He could only ask, "Miss Monroe, do you remember who the doctor was that saved you a year ago? Maybe if we ask for their help, there's still a sliver of hope." Clara looked a bit complicated. The person who saved her wasn't a doctor, it was me. After spending a year with me, she naturally knew I didn't know a thing about medicine. I just got bullied a lot at the orphanage, and always carried Band-Aids on me. But it really seemed like being around me was why she recovered so fast. I always asked her if she loved me, and she always expressed her love without hesitation. After all it took was the word love, and the boy was satisfied. Clara shook her head. She was the one who didn't want me first, but now she kept thinking of me, and all the thoughts were good ones. Clara's subordinate remembered something else. "Miss Monroe, you said before you wanted to marry Mark. The wedding is almost ready, but considering your condition, should we delay it a bit?" Clara thought of Mark, and her frown faded. She smiled and said, "It's fine. The wedding will go on. But I need to confess my identity to Mark first." In her wheelchair, disguised bodyguards pushed her out of the hospital. Just inside the Prestons' mansion's door, Clara heard Mark's voice coming from the study. "Give me a break." Clara wondered what trouble the little guy had gotten into this time, and was about to open the door to ask, but the next thing she heard pinned her to the spot. "Why did you have to mess with her? Now you find out she's disabled and you're not happy, huh?" "Disabled? Is he talking about her?" Mark's whining voice continued. "Sis, you know me. I was just after her body. If the Vances wanted an alliance, I'd dump her in a heartbeat, right? Clara is just a poor girl. What's her status compared to the Prestons? Leo's the one who's a fool for having a girlfriend like her. Now, someone interested in me is Miss Monroe. Marrying into the Monroes, our social class will take a huge leap. Isn't that tempting for you?" Chloe sighed. "Since you know she's not good enough for you, why did you have to mess with her? Even though they're both named Monroe, their status is worlds apart." "Of course it's to snatch Leo's stuff. Clara looked up sharply. Inside, Chloe seemed stunned, exclaiming, "What do you mean, snatching Leo's stuff?" Mark was nonchalant. "Why so surprised? I thought you all knew. I made a bet with Leo that if I took his stuff 9 times, he'd cut ties with you all. Clara was the last thing he cared about. You all don't like Leo, right? This way it won't hurt Mom and Dad's feelings, and Leo won't get any inheritance. Everyone's happy." Chloe's voice sounded strained. So Leo never took your stuff? You've always been taking his—" Clara squeezed her eyes shut. She was afraid she'd show her anger. She thought she was using me to provoke Mark, to make him give in. But actually, it was Mark using her to push me away. Among the 3 of them, the most innocent one was me. The bodyguard asked coldly, "Miss Monroe, do you want us to take action?" "No." Clara opened her eyes, her voice as icy as the Arctic. "Not only must they not find out, but you need to keep planning the wedding with Mark. Do you understand?" Clara herself had disappeared, and Mark had been quite pleased for a while. Although Chloe's gaze wasn't as doting as it used to be, its complexity was beyond his comprehension. But Mark couldn't be bothered with that right now. To him, the Prestons were just a stepping stone. 2 sets of courtyard houses and a mere $1.6 billion barely made the Prestons flinch. With family wealth like that, it's hardly impressive among the truly wealthy. Now he was keen to hold on to Miss Monroe for dear life. He was really aiming for that upgrade in class. Honestly, Mark was a bit scared. Rumor had it Miss Monroe was a cold, ruthless big shot. She was unpredictable. Offending her often meant disappearing within 3 days. The idea of living with someone like that for a lifetime was a mental strain Mark couldn't ignore. But what happened next made all his doubts vanish quickly. Gifts from the Monroes started pouring in, like antique vases, top-notch luxury jewelry, and enough designer bags to fill a closet. Mark hugged these treasures and playfully teased Chloe. "What's up? Why the long face?" "Yeah, your brother's so overjoyed. Why do you look so down all the time?" The Preston couple had rushed back overnight to attend Mark's wedding and were surprised by Chloe's expression. She was once the person who adored Mark the most. What had happened to change that? Chloe had swallowed her words more than once, but seeing their reproachful looks now, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Mom, Dad, do you really not care about Leo at all?" Mark's face changed. The Prestons exchanged a knowing glance. "Right. It's been a while since Leo got married, yet there's no news." "Exactly. Sophie was said to be critically ill, but the funeral never happened. Who knows what's up?" "You'd think a son would worry about his parents. We came back, and he didn't even ask. It's not like Mark, the loving son we raised." John Preston pulled Mark into an embrace, while Susan peeled fruit nearby. They truly looked like a happy family of 3. Chloe couldn't hold back any longer. "Mom, Dad, things aren't how you think. You know what? Forget it. Too much has happened lately, and I can't explain. But we should visit Leo soon. Mom, do you remember why I changed my last name?" Susan's face went blank for a moment. Then she remembered. "When I was taken by the nanny, she cried her heart out, passing out from dehydration several times. After 2 months of fruitless searching, she began to give up hope. Before adopting Mark, she took Chloe to change her last name. She told her daughter that they always had a brother, that she should never forget him. The Prestons' most beloved child was forever that little boy. But the once heart-wrenching pain slowly faded with Mark's arrival. Susan was momentarily confused. All her affection for Mark, was it really for him, or an imagined son in her mind? But after I returned, they didn't grow close. It seemed like everyone forgot the promises made to me. Seeing Susan's dazed look, Mark pinched his own thigh hard, tears streaming down his face. He clung to Susan's arm. "Mom, I know you can't let go of my brother. To you, he'll always be irreplaceable. I've never wanted to compete with him. In a few days, I'll be marrying into the Monroes. I won't be able to stay with you and Dad anymore. I cherish these last days with you. After my wedding is done, I'll come with you to bring Leo home." Susan was deeply touched, praising Mark for being so good. Yet Chloe looked on in disbelief. She had seen Mark pinch his thigh just before crying. So all those times he cried before, was it all fake, just like today? And why hadn't anyone thought about it? If Leo's wife really died, how was he even living right now? Without family around and not knowing anyone from his in-laws, why had no one truly thought about my situation? Suddenly, Chloe felt a chill creeping from the ground up through her feet. 3 days before the wedding, the Monroes sent over a prenuptial agreement. Mark signed his name with a smile. Seeing his attitude, Chloe was annoyed, but felt the need to speak up. "You didn't even read it before signing? Aren't you worried the Monroes might trap you?" Mark shrugged it off. "I did read it, nothing special. And Miss Monroe already signed. If I make her wait, she might think I'm not willing." Chloe was speechless. The woman they hadn't even met had Mark, her good brother, acting head over heels. She knew exactly what Mark was really interested in. On the wedding day, Mark donned a silk suit. He got into the car the Monroes sent. The Prestons followed in another car. Once they arrived, they saw someone unexpected, Clara. Mark's shock was impossible to hide. "What are you doing here? And in a wheelchair?" Clara just smiled silently, while a bodyguard stood in front of her. "Don't you know whose territory you're on? Be respectful to Miss Monroe." Miss Monroe? The Prestons were even more surprised. They never imagined the famous Miss Monroe would be so young, almost their daughter-in-law. The grandmother wanted to take Clara's hand. "Child, had we known you were Miss Monroe, we'd have given you the head seat at the family banquet. We hope you weren't offended." Clara still didn't speak, her gaze at the old lady like looking at garbage. Chloe shook her head in disbelief. "No way! If you're Miss Monroe, why would you marry Leo? You embarrassed him for Mark before. Everyone knows that. Mark, what's going on?" Chloe turned to ask Mark, but his face was pale. She nudged her brother. Mark's tears fell, even messing up his hair. "This can't be. It's impossible." Chloe was confused. Mark dreamed of marrying Miss Monroe. Clara was his ex-girlfriend. He signed the prenuptial agreement, and Clara wasn't going anywhere. Marriage would only make things better for him. Why was Mark sobbing like he'd lost his parents? She tapped his shoulder. "What are you doing? Didn't you say you wanted to get married? Why are you crying?" "Should I tell you why?" Clara calmly brushed off her sleeve and instructed, "Start the wedding. Don't miss the auspicious time." Doors on one side of the hall opened. 2 bodyguards led a tall, overweight woman inside. She looked to be at least in her 30s, but giggled like a 6-year-old. Clearly, she wasn't all there. Clara's smile was devilish. "Let me introduce the bride for today, Maria." Mark collapsed to the floor. "I can't marry her. I won't marry this person. She's clearly not right." The Preston parents and grandmother were shocked, shouting how this couldn't happen. They rushed to protect Mark, but Clara had no shortage of bodyguards. He pulled the family aside and dragged Mark to the altar. "You can't back out now. You signed the marriage agreement, saw the names," Mark cried, shaking his head. "I wanted to marry Miss Monroe. I didn't know her full name. You're deceiving me. Clara, what did I do to deserve this? Didn't you love me the most?" Clara enunciated. "How could that pauper be good enough for us Prestons? Mark, I didn't realize your family was so noble. Since status matters so much, I found someone from the Monroes who matches yours. How can you be unhappy with that?" Mark was forced to marry this woman, crying and screaming until his voice was hoarse. Chloe, overwhelmed with pity, shouted at Clara, "If you have any issues with the Prestons, come to me. I'm the Preston's daughter. Let my brother go." Clara's expression was hidden in shadows. "It made Chloe randomly think of me. On the day I agreed to be a substitute groom, Chloe couldn't read my expression either. Maybe all of this was wrong from the start. She softened her voice and pleaded, "Clara, I know you're still not over Leo. I regret it now, too. Why don't we go to the Vances together and openly bring Leo back, okay?" Clara's expression softened a bit. At that moment, someone who had been tasked to follow the Vances rushed in. "Miss Monroe, bad news. Sophie is awake. They're talking about redoing Sophie and Master Leo's wedding." These days, my biggest joy was watching the affection bar in the system. Clara's gray bar was steadily growing. It was about to hit 99. But what did that matter? My target wasn't her anymore. Even if Clara loved me to death now, her legs wouldn't heal. As for Sophie's pink progress bar, that was something. After Sophie woke up, I sat by her side, watching over her. In her dazed state as she looked at my face, her affection surged. It was nearing 90, but as she fully woke up and clearly saw my appearance, her affection dropped back to 70. I was worried. "System, do you think she has a past love? And when her vision is blurred, I look a bit like him to her? Otherwise, why would her affection rise so fast and drop so quickly?" The system didn't believe it. Sophie's shooting skills are top-notch. No way she has poor vision. Sophie felt extremely guilty towards me. She bowed her head and apologized. "I'm sorry. My grandma and parents were too reckless. They've put you through so much. If you have any requests, just let me know. I'll do my best to fulfill them." I paused, my face full of awkwardness. At the Vances, I wasn't mistreated. I had even gained 5 pounds. Mrs. Vance loved making dishes I enjoyed, and every time I looked in the mirror, I thought my face looked rounder. I awkwardly confessed, "Sorry, I've been living so comfortably at your place, I forgot you woke up. I don't think I have much reason to stay now. Don't get annoyed with me. It's mainly because I promised someone I'd fulfill a condition to save you." Sophie looked intrigued. "What condition?" "Not much." My eyes darted around. "Just that I need to stick with you for a bit." As soon as I said that, Sophie's affection level plummeted. The system screamed in my head, "Shut up, she's breaking!" I fell silent. In the past, when I was with Clara, I never felt such huge fluctuations. Was that the difference between humans and beasts? That night, Sophie's affection bar went back up again. I hadn't done anything. It seems like she cheered herself up. Still, I was a bit anxious. Sophie's affection level kept hovering around 70. Did this mean women didn't really like me? Even if the system tried to push them together, would they truly be happy? Although it might save Sophie's life, I didn't really want to see her as just a conquest. This was a feeling I never had with Clara. I downed 2 bottles of wine, trying to muster up the courage to come clean to Sophie. "I have something to tell you," I said. Her voice was so flustered it cracked, and her pale face flushed with red. For a moment you couldn't tell who had actually been drinking. The system was amazed and decided to mute itself. When I woke up the next day, I felt pain all over. My head, arms, back, everywhere. I called out to the system, "What happened?" Silence filled the air until the mechanical voice said, "See for yourself." My eyes widened. How did this happen? Sophie's affection level was maxed out. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief. Was it really that simple? Just sleeping on it? And shockingly, Clara's affection level was maxed out too. Why was last night so surreal? Before I could process all this, a pair of hands wrapped around my waist from behind. "Leo, you have to take responsibility," said a voice. I never expected things to turn out like this. In a daze, I asked the system. Mrs. Vance always said I was her good luck charm. But really, am I the Vance's lucky star? Was the task really this simple to complete? The system, reflecting in regret, thought, "It was my fault. I should have never helped Clara. If I'd paired him with Sophie from the start, the task would have been done ages ago." I blushed a bit. I didn't expect that Sophie and I would be a case of love at first sight. In a further twist, Sophie was pregnant. A month and 3 weeks into the pregnancy, it caught the Vances completely off guard. They hurried us to get our marriage license, then picked the nearest date to throw us a wedding. A little later, and Sophie wouldn't have fit into her wedding dress. I looked in the mirror, still a bit in disbelief. I asked the system, "Is the person in the mirror really me, not someone else? How could something this good happen to me?" Sophie, like a little puppy, rubbed her chin against my shoulder. "It's you and me. It's really you. Do you think I'm some ancient empress? Why would I need so many lovers? I only love Leo, no matter his last name or first name. It's you!" My eyes turned red. Even if I dismissed everything as sweet talk, the system's approval ratings didn't lie. Plus, I trusted Sophie's character, and I believed in the Vance's upbringing. I walked over to Sophie and pulled her into a hug. "Leo, did you see my approval rating? Believe me, I won't ever let it drop." I smirked. "If it drops, I'm running off with the kid. Your son is my hostage now, Sophie. Be smart about it." We both couldn't help but laugh. When I went off stage, I spotted some unexpected people. "Chloe? How did you know I was getting married?" My biological parents, whom I hadn't seen in ages, now seemed somewhat unfamiliar to me. John's words got stuck in his throat. He could only awkwardly mumble, "Just came to see and give you a little wedding money." Had they not fallen out with me, today they would be the Vance's in-laws. But now, it was too late to regret. Things wouldn't go back to how they were. Susan couldn't help but grasp my hand. "Leo, help your brother plead with Clara. She'll listen to you. Can you ask her to stop tormenting your brother, please?" I didn't even have time to respond. 2 hands simultaneously intervened, separating my mother and me. Chloe looked pained. "Mom, this is not the time to plead for Mark. I've told you he's been bullying Leo all along. Why don't you believe me?" Susan looked torn. "But he's the one I raised." Sophie protected me. "Whoever's the perpetrator, you deal with them. If there's illegal detention, I'll help report it." And with that, she turned to leave, leaving Susan's sobs behind. Knowing what had happened to Mark left me uneasy. There was always a sense of doom lingering, until I went out to buy books and was shoved into a car by a group of people. Only then did my nerves settle. I just knew it. How could Clara let things go so easily? That woman's specialty was holding grudges. Once at a seaside warehouse, Clara personally took my hand to guide me out. "Sorry, Leo, I can't stand upright right now. It's a bit embarrassing. What are you going to do? Your wife is pregnant." A storm brewed in Clara's dark eyes. "I wouldn't touch you, but she dared." "Leo, how long have you known each other? You definitely haven't thought it through. When you're abroad, I'll help you take care of the child." I was taken aback. "Are you planning to smuggle?" Clara laughed. "Don't worry, the Monroes have connections. They'll make sure you're safe." "You're crazy." "Yeah, I'm crazy. Crazy beyond help. Leo, you were the one who saved me. You were the one who got engaged to me. I know I was wrong. I love you, not Mark. Give me another chance. I don't want to lose you." I felt everything was absurd. Clara might not be lying. She liked me so much, but her love was terrifying. I almost laughed out loud. "Clara, you think I'm a trash can, picking up any kind of love? Your love doesn't even deserve a spot compared to others. I gave you countless chances, but you didn't want them. Clara, you're out." Clara's pupils shrank. She pulled me into her arms. Just as the word "out" was spoken, a bullet pierced through the air, straight through Clara's left chest and into my shoulder. I was stunned. Didn't even have time to cry out in pain before someone hugged me tightly. Sophie's voice was trembling. "Someone help! Save my Leo!" I knew she was probably too panicked to know what to say. I closed my eyes, silently praying. My first wish is for my family's health and safety. What about the second one? the system asked. Wait, I'll think about it. I chuckled. With the system's help, my and Sophie's baby was born safely in the winter. The Vances didn't throw a huge celebration. The family just sat together for a nice meal. I never went back to the Prestons and didn't contact my biological parents. I just felt a sense of wistfulness. Last winter I was packing my bags, waiting to be kicked out by Mark. This winter, everything with the Prestons was left behind, a part of the past. Mark finally won his divorce case and split from Maria, but he was so tormented he couldn't have kids anymore. Clara was buried under a nameless stone, with no one to brush away the frost and snow. I heard a knock on the door. Opening it, I found a toy motorcycle at the doorstep. Chloe talking about adding the bike as a wedding gift seemed like just yesterday. The system softly said, "Leo, goodbye. From now on, my life was my own to control."